What's up, everybody? This is Miles Turner, the Indiana Pacers. You're listening to Paceroos Podcast. Be sure to follow @Paceroos on Twitter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Paceroos Podcast, the only Australian NBA podcast with a bias towards the Indiana Pacers. I'm your host, Adam, and we've got a bit to get through on the show today. We're going to go through the recent wins against the Sixers and the Wolves. But after that, we have a very special interview, our first ever interview with a former NBA player. Justin, you and Alex were lucky enough to sit down with Chris Copeland earlier today.
Yeah, fantastic, momentous occasion for the Paceroos, our first NBA player on. We all have mentioned to you 2020 is going to be a big year for us. And, the start of it's getting a former fan favourite, Chris Copeland, on. And, he was fantastic in that playoff run we had. It was great talking to him. Obviously got a lot of insight from it.
And Alex, this obviously came together over a few weeks of discussing and negotiating, etc. But you'd be pretty stoked to have this one all recorded and ready to go.
Yeah, it's a bit of like a free agent agreement getting done between two different sides. But yeah, it was good to get Chris on. Obviously, we appreciate him taking the time. He didn't have to. So we definitely got some good answers out of him, some interesting ones as well. So stay tuned. Definitely going to want to listen to that one.
Yeah, I think I'll ask you guys now before we throw to the interview what your favourite moment of the interview was. We'll briefly discuss the wins we've had this week because it's been a big week in Pacers basketball with a couple of really strong wins. But while we're on the topic of the Copeland interview, Alex, I'll start with you. What was the biggest thing that you took from the interview that our listeners should listen out for?
Probably how much he respected the Indiana community and the fact that obviously we all know how much Indiana loves basketball, but to hear it from somebody who's actually been involved with it and, you know, who's played in the arena for not just one season, but for multiple seasons, and to hear how passionate they are, I think it just reiterates how strong of a fan base we have and how much of a basketball-centric state Indiana is. So I definitely thought that was interesting, and I thought also his take on the Danny Granger injury was a new angle I probably haven't heard of. So it was interesting to hear from an actual player because we always hear from fans. We always hear what fans think. We always hear what we think. But to actually hear it from somebody that was involved and in that locker room was incredible.
Yeah, it's a unique insight, and hopefully we can replicate it with a couple more players in 2020. But stay tuned for that. Justin, what stuck out to you from Chris Copeland's answers?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway was definitely asking him about the Evan Turner, Lance Stephenson scuffle in the practice. So I thought, why not? We've got Copeland on the show, and he was at that practice. So I thought I'd see if he'd give us any insight into it, and the fans can wait to hear his answer. It definitely meant something to me. I won't give it away, but I suppose no comments. The biggest comment to me.
Yeah, you tend to read between the lines on this sort of stuff, but regardless, we really appreciate Chris Copeland taking the time out of his schedule to be with us and to answer some questions from a couple of guys halfway across the world. I will not be heard on the interview. I had a date with a 2-year-old, a 0-year-old, and some Lego, so that stopped me from participating. But I'd say that you guys probably had a slightly more exciting morning than I had here in Australia. We'll get to the wins that we've had. What's that, mate?
Some load management from yourself.
Yeah, I've just excused myself. I guess that I saved myself for All-Star break in the playoffs, I think.
We've done 2 episodes this week. You've got to rest up.
Yeah.
My body just can't sustain more than 1 episode a week now, guys. It's late in my career. We had 2 big wins this week. The first was against the Sixers. It was a tough game. Obviously, Malcolm Brogdon's first game back, who struggled to begin with, but when it was winning time, we saw Malcolm Brogdon, step up and drain a big shot in the fourth quarter. And
who else did we see step up, Adam?
Who else? Who else, Justin?
Say it. Me and Alex want you to say the 2 words.
No, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. I'm not. It was a highlight play from Pacers point guard TJ McConnell in the fourth quarter. I'm not using the other
white.
I refuse to use.
Finish it, Adam. Come on. The white what? Come on.
No way. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, TJ McConnell was great. He was brilliant. Malcolm Brogdon was brilliant. And it was a really good win against a Sixers team missing Joel Embiid. However, they still had Ben Simmons, who went off in the first half, and it was a significant win for the Pacers again, and a game that allowed Malcolm Brogdon to get his feel for the game back.
It was a great game. I actually didn't think at one point, I was like, oh, this, we were extremely rough in that first quarter, even first half. I don't even know how we were down 1 or 2 points at quarter time. It felt like Philly were up 10. Really good to come away with a win. Essentially, you can say Embiid's out, yeah, but Oladipo's out, and Brogdon's first game back was extremely rusty. So we just beat one of the Eastern Conference contenders. We're now 2-1 against Philly in the season. We should actually be 3-0 if you think about it. That road game, we should have beaten them. So essentially, you're looking at we're ahead of Philly in the standings now. We own the tiebreaker as of right now, and we haven't even got our best player. So, as I mentioned on last week's podcast, I don't rate Philly anymore. I don't. Their setup's not correct, and I think we played extremely poorly that game. Brogdon came through in the clutch. TJ McConnell / White Iverson changed that whole game, but we still came away with a win.
Alex, it wasn't a great game to watch, was it?
God, no. It was that first half, especially as Justin mentioned, was just ugly. And, the Pacers have had a few of those games this year, but what's impressed me the most is that in those games where, they really haven't played well, they've either competed to where it's a close game like that Miami one maybe, or they've actually won. So, I think the Pacers haven't played their best basketball yet. There's still to come, and you get an Oladipo back. So if you're not excited as a Pacers fan, I just don't know what you're doing. Maybe you're living in a different world, but yeah, the Pacers, I think we could easily see ourselves, getting home court advantage 3 and 4 once Oladipo comes back.
Yeah, it's definitely a viable target. It was interesting to see, and we'll touch on this, reports during the week about Domas Sabonis's knee injury, that he couldn't injure the knee any more than he already had. It was just going to be pain management and playing through pain. We had a brief discussion about it. There was a lot of talk on Twitter, especially from Pacers Twitter, about history repeating itself with Oladipo. People were concerned about Domas getting injured, and I feel like there was a lot of concern being shown. Alex, you weren't among the people showing concern. You weren't worried at all. Obviously, trusting in the medical staff and the coaching staff. So, make your argument.
Well, I just want to say firstly that I saw a contingent, not everyone obviously, but me and Justin were talking about this earlier. I saw a few fans talking about how they're blaming this on Nate, or they're going to jump back on the Fire Nate bandwagon if Domas gets hurt. I'm just like, what does Domas have to do with this? He doesn't have a medical degree. He doesn't, he didn't study sports science or anything like that. This is on the medical staff. They cleared him. They said it was a bruise. I'm confident in them. I back them every step of the way. People were comparing it to the Oladipo injury last year, which I think is irrelevant because that was just a freak of nature injury that could literally happen to anyone no matter what. So I think that the Domas situation, look, I love Pacers Twitter, but that was just classic Pacers overreaction, I think. And, what did he have, like 25 points in the first half? He just absolutely abused the Timberwolves. So, yeah, he made Pacers Twitter, chime down pretty quickly, I think.
Justin, can you understand how Pacers fans can get a little bit gun-shy with reports of players not being able to injure themselves any further and playing through pain, given that we saw some similar news about Oladipo last year? Can you understand how some fans would make that connection? Not the Fire Nate stuff, that's a bit ridiculous, but do you sort of get where it comes from?
Yeah, put the Fire Nate stuff aside. That to me is ludicrous. But the whole, what you mentioned, yeah, definitely. Like Blake Griffin, I think, went through the same thing where the tweet actually said, Blake Griffin has a bruised knee or something, or he can't get hurt anymore, and now he's basically out the season. He's having surgery. So I can totally understand why people get concerned. Domas is a massive centerpiece to this team's hopes this year. He's probably going to be our lone all-star. So we don't want Sabonis getting hurt in any way. So I can definitely get that concern, but yeah, I'm along with Alex and like you, Adam. I just the Nate McMillan thing, like the medical staff isn't going to say to Nate, "Oh, Domas is hurt, sit him out," and Nate's going, "Nah, I'm playing him." Like it's not happening. So yeah, let's just calm the waters on that bandwagon.
Yeah. And Domas showed little to no signs of any of that pain against the Wolves. I mean, he had 29 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists. Justin, you were talking about, maybe 25, 30,000 screen assists he's had, which is an NBA record. So, who knows how to track that? I don't know where you got that data, but yeah, I think it was something like 30 screen assists and maybe 45 hand slaps and, maybe 67 handshakes and points. He was pointing to teammates about 78 times. So he had just an all round great game.
Oh, Alex, when you tagged me that Rudy Gobert stat, you said, "Oh, Rudy Gobert got triple double." Well, they're 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 20 screen assists. Yeah. I just thought it was a random fan, and I just kind of laughed at it. And then I opened the profile, and that's like the official Utah Jazz, radio broadcaster.
Mark Monteith or almost of Utah.
Yeah, and I was like, "What is this? Is this guy serious? Like screen assists, we're now counting as a triple double? You'd essentially every big man would have a triple double every game." So I thought it was quite humorous. So his mentions were lit up pretty quickly. So just another intriguing thing from the NBA this week.
Yeah, it was weird. Stats can sometimes get a little bit out of control, but something else can get out of control is Tomas. He really dominated the Wolves, especially when none of our other players in the first half of that game were really getting going. So he was playing a lone hand. We were down early, came back and took control of the game in the second half, and it was a professional victory. Just as we're talking about this, I just got a notification on my phone. The game's about an hour and a half away, but KarlAnthony Towns will play in the second game against the Pacers, going down in about 90 minutes time.
That's good. That's good. I think the Pacers need that. Let's see how we go. I think he torched Goga in the preseason, didn't he? Obviously it's going to be a bit different now, but that's good. We want to play teams at their best. We don't want to play Philly without Embiid and Minnesota without Cat. You want to play the teams at their best because that's when you can start evaluating yourself and seeing where you're at in this season. So I'm looking more forward to tonight's game than I did previous two nights, because now we're essentially playing Minnesota at their best.
Yeah, do you see the result going any differently, Alex?
Yeah, well, obviously when you get, a borderline 30 and 10 guy back, it's gonna change a lot, especially for our boy Miles. I think it's gonna be a big test for him. We know he's had his struggles against the better centers in the league. So, if he can prove himself here and hold Cat down a little bit, then I think we could easily get the win. But it's going to be a lot tougher. Obviously, you're at home, which makes it easier. But Tomas isn't going to be going up against Naz Reid this time. Poor Naz. I felt bad for him. He was getting absolutely abused. But yeah, Cat is going to be a big test for the Pacers. Hopefully, we can pull out the W.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll leave it there, guys, because we've obviously got the Chris Copeland interview to get to, and we'll bring you another episode in a few days to preview that big Western Conference road swing, which is going to be a big challenge, but it's also the last big road trip before Victor Oladipo's return to the Pacers lineup, which is also pretty momentous. So, final thoughts from each of you guys prior to the Copeland interview, Alex?
Give it a listen. You'll enjoy it, Pacers fans. Obviously, Chris, if you're listening to this, thanks again for coming on. And thank you for supporting the podcast, everyone.
And Justin?
Yeah, massive thanks to Chris. Again, getting a former player is massive. Again, I mentioned at the start of the show, this podcast is just getting bigger and bigger. We've got a few other things hopefully lined up in the next month or so. So this is just the start of it. So stay tuned. And just I've got a few messages from people around Australia just saying, they just listened to their first episode. They loved it. They want to hear more. So just to all our new fans out there, keep listening, and we love your support.
Yeah, well said. Well, enjoy the Chris Copeland interview. I'll wrap up briefly afterwards, but you're listening to the Paceroos Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Paceroos Podcast. I'm your co-host, Alex, as always, joined by Justin. Unfortunately, no Adam today, but nonetheless, we are joined by a very special guest, the one and only former Indiana Pacer, Chris Copeland. Chris, how are we?
Good, man. How are you?
Yeah, we're doing very well. Thank you for joining us today. Talk a bit about Pacers basketball, your career, and the NBA in general. So I know you signed with the Pacers back in 2013, which seems like a lifetime ago, I'm sure, but that team won 56 games. But can you talk us through a little bit what made you sign with the Pacers? What was going into that off-season move for you?
Definitely was happy with what they offered me, to be totally honest with you. Number two, the opportunity to play for a championship and playing with these guys. It's a talented group that I respected. After being in battle with them it was tough. It was a tough move. You know what I mean? To be totally transparent. Honestly, at the time, wanted to stay with the Knicks, but I'm glad it's a move that I made.
Yeah, awesome. I remember on Twitter, social media, the Pacers actually posted a photo of the care package they sent you, or the welcome pack. Did that have any significance to you, and what did that mean?
Yeah, it was dope. It was like, I mean, I was getting calls, and I had a pretty good rookie season, so I was getting recruited. But it was just dope, that they went out of their way. They definitely worked really hard in recruiting me, and it was really cool. It was a big moment for me as a guy that had worked so hard just to get into the league and just be the last guy on the roster, to have teams actually go out of their way to want me to be a part. So it was I was honored that they sent me that package. I was like, man, this is cool. Like, I'm being recruited in the NBA. Like, this is going to come true.
Yeah, and obviously we know Indiana's a basketball-centric state. They absolutely live and breathe it there. But what was it like playing for the Pacers in terms of, playing in front of that crowd, playing in front of Indiana fans that are so passionate? What was that like?
That's the Hoosier State. I mean, it's one thing to just go and be celebrated and cheered by fans, but something special about New York and Indiana. The passion that comes with people that know basketball and really love the game. It feels different. It feels great. So for me, it was again an honor just to play in front of those fans out there, and I have nothing but love for Naptown. Yeah,
and I think that the locker room for that team was absolutely incredible. Obviously you had Paul George and David West in there, but what was it like being in there? What was the atmosphere? Because you guys were obviously contenders, finished with 56 wins, the first seed. Did you guys know that you had a real shot to contend? And what was it like in the locker room?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the goal was that gold round ball at the end of the season, and that was what it felt like. What it felt like is everybody was on a mission. It was great. We had great times. We had a lot of fun, but we all knew what we were there for. Now we try to win it all. That was the goal, and we had a good run. We got close, made some noise, but it was a good run.
So that season was obviously a big one in the Pacer fans' mindset. I think the key maybe move for that season was the trade at the deadline, trading away the captain Danny Granger for Evan Turner. I know a lot of Pacer fans in hindsight and at the time didn't really like that trade. Just how dramatically did that affect the team's chemistry, and what was kind of the reaction from the veterans like yourself when you found out about that trade?
We all love Danny, so naturally you get a little bit of pushback, but I mean, it got getting Evan, getting Lavoie, they were great guys, great pieces. We understood it, but it's a part of the game, like you said. The veterans on the team, anybody if you've been playing basketball for long enough, that's a part of the game. And it's something to be expected. There's always movement, and teams are going to try to do their best to put their best foot forward, and put the best possible team they can to give you the best shot at winning it. So, I mean, I salute management for doing the best they can. Yeah. Obviously, we weren't happy with it at the time, but we don't make every shot, and every decision doesn't always end in championship. So, I think they did the best they could.
Yeah, and do you think that there was any carryover from that trade? Like you mentioned, not everyone, especially in the fan base, was happy with it. Do you think that, not necessarily Lavoie maybe, but as Evan was the main piece of that trade, do you think he felt a little bit of that pressure, and do you think it maybe contributed to the fact that he wasn't on the team for very long, or not at all?
I don't know. I can't speak to his mind state, but I thought he played well. Mind you, this is a team. The team that he came aboard was. We had pieces. We had a lot of pieces. So it wasn't like a situation where we were looking for Evan to save us or anything like that. We just wanted a really good player, and that's what he was. I thought he played his role like we all tried to do. So I don't know why, how it pans out in his mind, but I thought he did a great job personally.
And I think that you and Lance were pretty close in that locker room, but I think it would be wrong of me not to ask about him. What's it like playing with Lance? Obviously, we all know he's a bit of an interesting character, to say the least, but it had to be fun to have him in your locker room, wouldn't it have been?
He's the guy you you hate to go against, love to play with.
Yeah.
That cliche, that statement, but he's that guy. He's just a fierce competitor. He's a guy you want to go to war with. Like, I mean, he'll do whatever for his teammates. Plays extremely hard every night. Savvy on the floor, very savvy. Extremely talented. We all know. I mean, and he's entertaining as anybody and that I've ever seen as far as playing basketball. You not only see a quality player, but you'll get to actually enjoy the show. So I got nothing but love for Lance. That's my guy for life.
Yeah, he was definitely a fan favorite, good old born ready. But I just want to ask you maybe a bit of a personal question, because you're obviously a very good 3-point shooter, and a lot of the teams you played for, like the Knicks, the Pacers, and the Bucks, you would come off the bench, and obviously the coach would want you to, get involved and get shots up quickly. How hard is it for a shooter to maybe stay ready and stay warm, that you can come in on the court at any time and be expected to make 2-3 threes in a row?
Tough.
Yeah.
It's very, very tough, man. It's a crapshoot, bro. Like you sitting down and you got to channel the rhythm that it takes to make shots. It's a mind game you play with yourself. It's very challenging, but the ones that can do it are they're allowed to do what they want to do when they get their minutes. So that was kind of fun for me because I had free reign to let the ball fly. So that was cool. But it is challenging. It's not easy to get loose, get ready for the game. Then when the ball gets tipped, you gotta sit down and get cold. You know what I mean? And then try to figure out how to make shots. It's a lot harder than people would think, but I'm still glad I got the opportunity to try and give it a shot.
And did that Pacers team give you the ultimate green light? Did they just say, Chris, if you find your spot, let that ball fly, or were they more play within the system?
No, I mean, they did say it. I didn't hear it. So for me, it was, I got a green light. It was, I never felt like there was a shot that I mean, mind you, I've taken bad shots and coach and Vogel will be like, "Coach, come on now." You know what I mean? That happens.
Yeah.
But for the most part, Vogel was letting me shoot and wanted me to shoot, and so did all my teammates. So that made it comfortable for me when I was out there.
And having those 2 seasons in Indiana, did you have a favorite moment or maybe favorite play from yourself? I know you had that game winner in Milwaukee in, I think it was 2015, but did you have a game that stood out for you?
Nah, man, just the experience. The experiences for those 2 years was great. Having a lot of fun. The things you remember in this and then are the camaraderie moments, the locker room, the laughs, the roasting sessions, the trash talking in practice, you know what I mean? Like, that's the stuff you really miss. There's not like a particular game. I had some good games, some bad games, whatever, but the basketball is what I miss or think about the least, to be honest with you.
I'm just going to do a quick follow-up there. You mentioned the trash talking in practices. Is the Lance Stephenson, the Lance and Evan fight in practice as good as it was promoted?
I don't know anything about that.
Oh, okay. Love it. Well, do you still obviously watch a lot of current NBA? We're just going to get your thoughts on the current Pacer team. If you think how far they can go once Oladipo comes back in the team.
Oh man, they obviously look great already, and that's without Vic. And Vic is a special talent. So kudos to the coaching staff. I know pretty much all those guys, and they did a real deal. So shout out to Nate. But I don't want to go down the list, and but those guys know I have nothing but respect for them, and that's why they're in the position that they're in. Is they have a quality staff, trainers, management. Like I said, they've always done a great job. So. They're going to be in a great position, very dangerous for whoever they see in the playoffs.
And speaking of current NBA, I've seen a little bit on Twitter about Knicks fans wanting to get you back in New York. Can we see an NBA return maybe coming soon or nah?
I've heard that. Not likely, man. We'll see. I still play around every now and then. I hoop with some guys out here, some guys that you will recognize, but no name drops. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see what happens in the future, but I'm not planning on it anytime.
What about coming to Australia? Have you ever been offered an NBL contract to come over like LaMelo Ball?
I did actually before I made it to the league when I was still on the overseas circuit. Yeah. One of my closest friends is actually a guy you guys know, Corey Williams, Homicide.
Yep.
wow.
Oh yeah, he's a legend here.
Yeah, he's one of my best friends actually. He's like a guy when I was in New York, literally driving me around before I made it, and like we're having conversations, and he's like, taking me around the city, making sure I was good and all that, and he was really in my ear, like, you're gonna make this team, bro, like really positive, like before anybody knew who I was yet. Like that's me and Corey go way back. Like that's family.
Yeah, we absolutely love Homicide here in Oz. But I've got to ask, I see I see you in those pickup games, Chris. I see you in those pickup games on YouTube. But I've got to ask you, I've heard a little bit about this XXV Sports. I know Meta World Peace he's the founder of it. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that is and how you're maybe involved with that?
Yeah, no, this is there's a lot of pieces to it. All in all, what we're trying to do is think of finding pickup runs in your area. Sometimes it's hard to figure out who wants to play that day and and imagine a network of people that just love the game of basketball, want to come and play. We're trying to give you a one-stop shop to do that. That's the recreational pickup is one part of it. Then the second part is the showcase, which I'm most excited about. Is trying to give guys opportunities like myself who came out of nowhere and just want to figure out how to get, how to pursue their dreams. So we're setting up runs for guys to be seen, potentially get jobs, get showcase games. In the showcase games, we have like some influencers and stuff to have, to help with your notoriety, and boost your profile. So there's different ways to look at it, and there's still more coming. I can't reveal yet, but those two are like the backbone of the platform. Yeah,
definitely. And I think for everyone wanting to check it out, you can go to xvxsports.com. Obviously doing some great for the community there, and I know you and Meta are really close as well. But Chris, we want to thank you a ton for coming on. You guys can follow Chris at Optimus Scope on Instagram. Obviously, we appreciate you talking to two random guys from the other side of the world here in Australia. Okay. But yeah, well, do you just want to leave with anything, or maybe just
shout out to you guys. I got love for anybody that got love for me. So wish you guys.
We appreciate that.
Platform. I hope it all goes well.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Chris. Thank you for coming on.
All right, that was the Chris Copeland interview on the Paceroos Podcast. We'll speak to you in a few days ahead of our big Pacers road trip. Hopefully the Pacers can pull out a win against the T-Wolves at home today. So you've been listening to the Paceroos, and thanks so much. We'll see you next time.